It comes with a lot of risk. It's going to be riskier than what they did in Venezuela because the Iranian regime has a history of anti-Americanism. Its legitimacy is rooted in the idea of being anti-Western. And so it will be a lot more difficult for the Trump administration to get the Iranian security services on board with working with them in the same way that the Venezuelan forces did.
And Marc Gustafson joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can we talk about the threat of a military intervention in Iran? I mean, we know that there is a huge amount of capability in the region, and Donald Trump has made no secret about that. What's your assessment currently of where things stand on that front?
I think there's going to be strikes coming soon. And I think it's likely that Trump will engage in comprehensive strikes against the Iranian regime. Likely he'll go after the missile facilities and the nuclear rebuilding that's been happening, as well as regime targets inside Tehran. And I think that the Trump administration is likely seriously considering decapitation strikes or taking out the supreme leader.
And is that feasible? I mean, the reality is Iran has had some time now to prepare for those strikes. I mean, Donald Trump has made no secret of the fact that there is the potential there. Do you think these strikes by America would be a success in that context?
It comes with a lot of risk. It's going to be riskier than what they did in Venezuela because the Iranian regime has a history of anti-Americanism. Its legitimacy is rooted in the idea of being anti-Western. And so it will be a lot more difficult for the Trump administration to get the Iranian security services on board with working with them in the same way that the Venezuelan forces did. That said, the Iranian regime is weak right now and weaker than it has been since 1979, during the revolution. I think it's experienced a number of setbacks, especially last year, where it lost a lot of its long range ballistic missile systems. I think it took some serious hits against its senior leadership in the IRGC. More than a dozen of the most senior and most capable IRGC leaders were killed last year. Its nuclear scientists were killed last year. The Iranian proxy groups across the region, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Palestine, in Yemen, in Iraq, all of those groups have been set back and their capabilities have diminished significantly in the past 2 years. I think that's in part because of Israel's strikes against them and the actions that they've taken in their pressure campaign, but also because the United States has gone after some of those groups as well.
But are we clear about what military capabilities Iran still possesses and where those assets actually are?
I think there's still some question marks there, but some of that is clear to the US and to the Israelis and the intelligence communities in both places. I think that the long range ballistic missile systems are the ones that are most worrisome to the Israelis. They were able to go after a lot of those last year. I think the estimates now are probably about 1,700 to 2,000 missiles that they have. Israel is well placed to defend itself against those. I think that they were effective last year in going after some of the missiles before they were launched, and then, of course, when they were in the air. Now the U.S. has a much larger presence in the Persian Gulf than it did before, and has the capabilities to go after some of those missiles before they're launched in ways that they didn't last year. So I think that that helps Israel. I think on the short range ballistic missiles and what the Iranians could use to go after the US bases in the region and to go after ships that are passing through the Persian Gulf, that's where it gets a little more dangerous because the Iranians have thousands of those short range missiles and they could use them in the Persian Gulf to take shots at these ships that are passing by. They could go after the military bases that are there, and there are tens of thousands of Americans at those bases. That presents a lot of risks, but at the same time, the U.S. military presence in the Persian Gulf, with all the destroyers they brought in, with the aircraft carrier that's there and the other aircraft carrier that's off the coast of Israel, and all of the air power that they have, which is, by my estimate, probably double than what they had last year. They have a lot of capabilities to defend
Mm.
the assets there, and I think it'll be hard for the Iranians to hit them. It's dangerous and it's a risky gambit, but I think is a lot less risky than it was last year or the year before.
And is the justification because Donald Trump, in his State of the Union address, suggested that Iran was working on missiles that would soon be able to reach the US itself? Is that the justification for this action?
I think that there's a few justifications. I think there's a fear that Iran will use long range missiles to go after Israel again, and the US will get pulled into that and be responsible for helping Israel defend itself, which the US has done before. I think there's also the worry about the nuclear facilities and Iran rebuilding the nuclear program so that that could pose a threat again.
Mm.
Iran also is looking at more advanced weapon systems, like missiles that can travel faster and can more easily penetrate defense systems that the Israelis have and that the U.S. have. That those are capabilities that Iranians don't have now, but can develop just like many other militaries do. So all of those are concerns for the Trump administration. And then President Trump is on the hook in telling a lot of the protesters that he was coming to their rescue and that help was on the way. And so I think he's put himself out there in in responding to what happened a month ago when a lot of protesters were killed.
And your current day job is all about managing risk. I mean, what in your view is the risk of a military intervention by America, the type that we're talking about, on regional stability?
I think the risks are a lot less than they used to be. On regional stability, the biggest worry a couple years ago was that all of the proxy groups that were aligned with Iran would start attacking U.S. bases in the region, would attack Israel, would go after U.S. embassies. And the risks are still there, but they're significantly less than what they were before. And as I mentioned before, all of those groups have not been replenished for the last year or two because Iran has been unable to replenish them at the same rate that they were before. So they're not
Mm.
getting as much, but they also lost a lot of their capabilities before, and it's zapped their ability to hit the same targets that they used to.
Mark, you were head of the Situation Room, the Global Situation Room under Joe Biden. For our listeners here in the UK who don't know what that is, can you explain what that is and what your job entailed?
Sure. I was the chief of intelligence and then the head of the situation room. I managed a team of about 150 officers. They were enlisted military, they were intelligence officers from the State Department, all from different parts of the US government. And we provided breaking news, also intelligence reports to the president and to the national security advisor and other seniors at the White House on a 24/7 basis. Night times, weekends, holidays, our team was always on watch and ready to present intelligence or breaking news that might be happening to them that was serious enough to warrant going to the president. I also traveled with the president. Whenever he traveled domestically, I was usually there with him. Because of my emergency responsibilities, I had to be about within 200 yards of him most of the time when he was traveling domestically and when he was at the second residence. So I spent a lot of time being there and being ready in case something in the world happened that warranted his attention.
And in the case of Iran, if Donald Trump does decide to go ahead, what will that look like in the Situation Room?
This situation room usually knows about it in advance because they've got eyes and ears everywhere and they're watching what happens. And so they'll usually get a heads up and they will extend coverage. They'll bring a lot of people in so that they're ready and watching everything that they need to be watching. They monitor all of the intelligence feeds that are coming in from all the other agencies. They have the ability to monitor press, regional press in foreign languages. So
Mm.
they're going to be looking at all of that. They have a lot of different skill sets to make sense of it and bring it to the policymakers based on what they need to see and what they deem is most important. Those are times where they usually do their best and turn it on because under pressure is what they're trained to do, and usually what their calling is, and why they do it in the first place.
And if you were still in that role now, if you were still in that very close role with the current president, would you be advising that a strike against Iran would be a good idea at this point?
So my role was always nonpartisan, and I worked with President Trump and President Obama and President Biden in various roles. And I, as a career intelligence officer, I saw myself as nonpartisan. So I would always present options. I would lay out risks, but I wouldn't say you should do this or you should do that or this is a good idea or a bad idea, because that was never my job as somebody who's not um, in the policy world. So I would lay out everything that I know, and then I would let them make the decision.
Well, Mark, I'm sure somebody's doing that right now. No, I'd love to see inside that process. Thank you so much for being with us this morning. Great to speak to you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.